What's in our lungs? If you have this on the lamppost, what's in our lungs?
Arsenic, cadmium, chrome, lead, mercury, nickel.
That's poisonous. I would wash my hands after doing that.
Practical cooperation between China and Serbia is at the forefront, with practically the best results in Central and Eastern Europe. I have 4 ruined ribs here. I lost part of my lung, I had cancer, I had tuberculosis, all because of the plant. Guaranteed.
Since the Chinese came, they're just careless.
Across the Balkans, China is active in many industrial projects. But some of these endeavors seem to leave the environment and people's health worse off. We want to find out more about China's footprint in the Balkans.
What's in our lungs? If you have this on the lamppost, what's in our lungs? What's inside us? Nobody knows that.
Radinac is a small village near Belgrade. A lot of people die here. Their pictures on lampposts covered with red dust. Dragana Milic would love to leave her village, she tells me, but no one wants to buy her house. It too is covered in thick red dust emitted from the steel mill right across from her home.
See, it's running now. See how much smoke there is.
What used to be home to more than 5,000 people a decade ago is now increasingly dotted with empty homes. Young people in particular are turning their backs on the village in search of better paid jobs.
I've been living here for 37 years. It was a little bit better when Americans were in charge of the steel mill because probably they took better care of the environment. Since the Chinese came, they're just careless.
That steel mill is one of Serbia's oldest industrial facilities, commonly referred to as the pride of Serbia. It provides thousands of jobs in the region and has had various owners. Since 2016, it's a Chinese state-owned enterprise. What has allegedly changed here since China took over? It's difficult to speak to locals here on camera. They are afraid, they tell us. This couple too doesn't want to be recognized. Their children work for the Serbian government, ironically, in the health sector, they say. But they want us to film this photo. They took of what appears to be a gigantic dirty cloud above the factory.
Sometimes we hear explosions.
Earplugs against the noise. That's all they can do, they say.
They're just waiting for people to die.
Even before the Chinese got involved here, there was criticism against the steel plant. According to data from the regional hospital in Smederevo, cancer rates have quadrupled here during the past decade.
I've had 2 big tumors in 2 years.
The situation is very concerning. My wife wants us to move away from here, not only because of her, but also for the future of our children.
But for many who live here, the Smederevo steel plant seems the only option in an already impoverished part of Serbia.
Having a job is more important than the environment.
I am personally more concerned that people do not lose their jobs, and this pollution isn't affecting us.
The Chinese and the Serbian flag are seen when approaching the steel plant operated by HBIS, the Chinese investor. We have asked for permission to film inside, but our request was left unanswered. We want to try again. Cameras are not welcome. We managed to film nonetheless. What follows is a bizarre conversation with the public relations representative against the backdrop of a sign promoting environmental policies. So I should go to China and request an interview to talk to someone here in Serbia. That's the normal procedure. We receive another email address and make another request, but once again, no reaction. China has established close economic ties with the Western Balkans over the last decade, especially with Serbia. For China, the Balkans are the entry point to Europe, and Serbian President Aleksandar Vučić is a close ally. The two countries recently signed a free trade deal, and when Chinese President Xi Jinping came to Smederevo in 2016, hopes for his visit were high.
Let Chinese-Serbian cooperation set a good example for cooperation between China and the nations of Central and Eastern Europe, which will bring only good to our countries. China is ready to share development opportunities with Serbia and also with countries around the world.
Not only do Chinese companies run industrial projects in the Balkans, Chinese banks often provide loans for infrastructure projects, sometimes leading to dependency or debt traps. Political scientist Adnan Huskic is critical of such development.
This economic development sometimes comes at a great cost for both environment but also for the population and the budget of the Republic of Serbia. Vučić is heavily subsidizing foreign investors in terms of the workers they employ in order to attract them.
Our next stop, Belgrade, the capital. We want to find out whether inspections are being carried out by the Serbian state. Our written requests to the Health Ministry and the Environmental Ministry remain unanswered. Our follow-ups via phone without any result. Instead, we meet Milenko Jovanovic in Belgrade's forest. In 2021, he gathered dust samples from the steel plant for the National Ecological Association, an NGO he founded, to identify environmental problems and make them public. His findings?
Arsenic, cadmium, chrome, lead, mercury, nickel. These things should not be present in the air at all. They are toxic materials, heavy metals that cause cancer, and they shouldn't be there.
He says those who put profit before health of the people should be sanctioned. He's calling on the Serbian government.
The state should act. The factory is under the control of the state. We need transparency for the citizens. Tell them where the problem is, why and where incidents happen, and how to protect themselves. We need adequate filters. They must work and keep working.
China is also present in other parts of the Balkans. In neighboring Bosnia and Herzegovina, Chinese companies are set to get involved with the Tuzla plant, the country's biggest coal-fired power station. Gina lives right next to the plant. She is 74 years old and lives alone. Today, she is harvesting the last tomatoes of the season.
I have to grow my own vegetables. I can't walk very well and the supermarket is far away. When I harvest something, I wash it well, 3 times, and eat it. I don't think it's dangerous.
She tells me she has 4 chicken and 2 cats that keep her company after her husband died.
My husband died of stomach cancer in 2018, but I don't know what caused it.
Bosnia and Herzegovina has huge coal reserves. Last year it exported a quarter of the energy it produced. This is where the ash from the plant is dumped. It's just outside of town, but it feels as far away as the moon. This is where we meet Denis Sisko. He is an environmental activist and has been opposing the power plant for years. So, if we look at this,
That's poisonous. I would wash my hands after doing that. It's full of heavy metals, cadmium, arsenic, lead. It's not healthy.
so I should better drop it.
Yeah, please do, and wash your hands, but not in this water.
The ash from the plant is pumped with water into the basin. Presumably, the ash will be left here for good. Dennis tells me that according to a study he did together with a scientist from the University of Tuzla, the mixture contains a range of heavy metals. The water is toxic and extremely alkaline, he says, so it should not come into contact with underground water. So how is this basin, how is it sealed off?
They just built a dam at the end of the valley. And unfortunately, there's nothing sealing the bottom of this thing. So that's where we have a problem.
We confront the Bosnian state-owned company and ask them whether any seal exists. We get an evasive answer saying they comply with all regulations. To double-check the accusations, we ask the Environment Ministry for insight into the official environmental impact assessment of the site. They tell us that they can't get hold of the document. Not just soil, but also air pollution is a concern. For the renovation of Block 6, a Bosnian-Chinese consortium has been contracted, but the project has been severely delayed. And this is the empty site where another Chinese consortium was supposed to build a new block, Block number 7. The project has become infamous, it's been on hold for years, and could lead to millions of euros in losses for Bosnia. Block 6 and 7 are promised to be more modern and environmentally friendly, but there are fears that these investments will result in a power plant running for longer, hence raising emissions in the long run. We try to get in touch with the different Chinese companies involved, without success. Tuzla is considered one of the most air-polluted cities in Europe, and measures of particulate matter in the air are often in the unhealthy range during our stay. Besides the power plant, traffic, household heating and other industries contribute to it. One person who is deeply upset about air pollution is Iset Barcic, who lives near the plant. He wants to tell us about his health problems.
I have 4 ruined ribs here.
He tells us he has been sick for more than 20 years and suspects the reason is the plant.
I lost part of my lung, I had cancer, I had tuberculosis, all because of the plant. Guaranteed. It's all because of the power plant. I was born here. When I was a kid, the snow was black in the 70s. And now the rain is full of dust.
Iset shows pictures of his surgery. By now, he has only half of his lung capacity, he says. Iset doesn't want the plant to be closed, but demands better protection. He needs to take an array of medication and only goes outside when the pollution level is low.
Doctors even recommended that I move away if I can. But where to?
When we want to leave Izet's house, neighbors realize we are here to talk about the plant. And suddenly everyone wants to have their say. They tell us almost all of them have sick or deceased family members.
We are being poisoned here. My mother died, this neighbor died, his son died, she had surgery, and look at Izet's situation.
Another man stops his car to give his take on it. He is in favor of the coal power plant. A heated debate starts.
They can't close the power plant now. This region and the people here depend on it. Closing it would mean the end of mining here. It would mean job losses. And what would we end up with? Poverty. And somebody from up there deciding when to open and to close the pipes. Nowadays, a country that exports energy is a rich country.
But there's so much dust.
They should use better filters so we can feel better and breathe easier.
Especially during winter. You can't breathe. We're suffocating. I've seen many doctors. They told me it's no surprise knowing where I live. We just want to be healthy. We walk around like zombies.
At the local hospital, pulmonologist Sefika Umihanic is treating patients who live in the area. I show her the level of fine particulate matter of the last days. It's in the red area. With up to 200. What does that mean for your health, for my health, for everybody's health here?
That's much higher than the maximum for that size of particulates. Basically, no amount of this is healthy for humans. The higher the concentration and the longer the exposure, the more harmful and longer lasting the consequences.
Fine particulate matter, also called PM2.5, can lead to cancer, cardiovascular diseases, diabetes, and ultimately premature death. I want to know, is it possible to quantify how much harm is caused by the power plant and how much by other factors, such as traffic?
I cannot give you a percentage because there is no data. When it comes to the area around the power plant, air pollution is higher than it is in other parts of the city. The power plant itself definitely has a negative effect on air quality, but it is also comparable to other sources of pollution.
Sama ona se može komparirati sa drugim izvorima zagađenja u našoj okolini.
The electricity company is not willing to give a TV interview. Management responds to our questions via email, sending us their emission data. But just like the Environment Ministry, they don't specifically clarify emissions of harmful PM2.5 fine particulate matter. We get the impression that government bodies are turning a blind eye. One of the Chinese companies involved in Block 6 has been criticized by the Chinese anti-corruption agency. Adnan Huskic is worried that Chinese Balkans trade might sometimes not meet the necessary transparency standards.
That they are actually fostering practices which are corrupt, and in this sense, basically, the whole democratic development or democracy is becoming less consolidated. If you have, on our side, on the domestic side, if you have corrupt politicians who are eager to engage in such activities, and I think this is definitely the case here in the Western Balkans, then you have a perfect match.
While renovation of Block 6 is delayed, construction of Block 7 might be stopped completely. But it seems difficult for Bosnia to get out of the deal with the Chinese without a major financial loss.
I think that Bosnia will end up paying damages to the Chinese investors for this.
So who benefited from the deal?
Ultimately, nobody, it seems to me. So the damages actually will be incurred on the government and ultimately on the taxpayers.
Gina is living a slow life. Sometimes she suffers from bronchitis. But she has no anger against the coal power plant.
I love living here. It's what I know.
She has made peace with the place where she lives.
At my age, you don't have big dreams. You fight to take the next step, to walk, to stand up.
It's been more than 50 years since the power plant was built here. We wonder how the situation will look for the next generation in Tuzla.
Back in Serbia, many of Chinese projects happen to be in small villages, places that the younger generation prefers to leave behind. Perles, an hour from Belgrade, is a shrinking community too, with just a few thousand people remaining. Ilija Bataš-Bjelić says he intentionally moved here in 2018 in search for a sustainable way of living for his family of 4.
We have solar panels, we have bees here, we have some small garden, we have compost here. So basically we are trying to prove that life outside of Belgrade is possible.
But that plan has been turned upside down, he explains, since China found Perles attractive too. Just a few hundred meters away from his garden, a plastic recycling factory. The plant was already temporarily closed in 2021 due to environmental concerns. Locals demanded filters to reduce exhaust emissions, but feel not taken seriously, neither by Serbian authorities nor by the Chinese investor.
What I smell is melted plastic. The majority of people and kids from the village know the smell of melted plastic. It's bothersome. But what bothers me more than the smell is the idea, the thought that somebody is polluting you. That somebody created a business in this village. And that's why you have to breathe this. What's more, you don't know whether what you inhale is worse than the smell.
The closer we get to the plant, the more we smell a strong chemical odor. It provides jobs to a few dozen people. It's the end of their shift. No comment in front of our camera. The man who introduces himself as a PR person from the plant does not want to be filmed either, nor does he want to give us access. Instead, he drops a few racist remarks.
Yes, it stinks, and the people nearby can smell it. The wind spreads it. The Chinese are dirty on their own. They live like that. They don't say for no reason that Serbs are God's people. We are clean and tidy. That's why they don't want you to film, but all in all, I guarantee you that everything is okay.
Then he tells us to return at a different time to film inside. When we contact him via SMS, he writes that he allegedly no longer works at the plant, and the phone number he provides to receive access to the plant is left unanswered. We meet a former worker of the plant. The smell is normal, he says.
It's a recycling plant, not an ice cream factory.
Our interview comes to an abrupt stop when he receives a phone call.
Yes, wife.
Go home. Don't say anything else.
Fear of speaking up. Both in Perles and in Smederevo, the local governments are aligned with the politics of Serbia's President Aleksandar Vučić, and he's keen on bringing more Chinese investors to Serbia to boost the economy.
If you look at Serbia, this is the attempt to really balance between deciding whether we are going west or east, which is something that Serbia is historically infamous for. And it is clear that Serbia is basically trying to scare the West into thinking that if they don't make concessions to Serbia in this geopolitical sense, that they will turn to the east.
Back in Radinac, near the steel plant, Dragana Milic sets all her hope on environmental activists who told her they would bring the case to the European Court of Human Rights. She says everyone here knows what's wrong, but people who oppose inspections don't want to understand. Nobody wants to close the plant, but stop the toxic waste poisoning the village. The struggle is taking a toll on her. It's exhausting, she says. Her dream is simple.
Honestly, I would love to retire and spend the rest of my life with my grandchildren. That's my only wish.
Her grandchildren rarely come. It's not safe to touch anything here or play outside, Dragana says. A life increasingly constrained to be spent inside her four walls.